Hello everyone, welcome to my channel or welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, my name is Marian. I make a lot of radiology videos, but in today's video, I just want to talk to a lot of the women. That's why I'm going to label this video females only. And in today's video, I just wanted to switch it up and talk about uterine fibroids. I had uterine fibroids, but I got rid of mine. And I just wanted to share my story on how or when I got it and how I got rid of it. So this is just going to be a video for anyone who want to comment below, let me know or let everyone know how you got rid of your fibroids if you're still struggling with fibroids. So I found out I had uterine fibroids. I don't have it anymore. But when I found out I had uterine fibroids, I was probably 26. I was pregnant with my son. I only had one child. So, how I found out I had fibroids, I came in for the routine ultrasound scan that you normally get whenever you have a baby. I think it was like my 8-week visitor or 8-week checkup. So I came in and the OBGYN, she said, "Oh, you have a little fibroid." And I didn't know what it was. I was like, "Okay, what is a fibroid?" She said, "Don't worry, it's not cancerous. It's like a benign tumor." So I said, "Okay, what do I need to do? Do I need surgery?" And she said, "No, normally with fibroids, if it's small, you just leave it alone. And if it start growing and getting bigger, then they do something about it or consider medication or surgery, things like that." So whenever she found my fibroid, she said it was like a size of a dime. So it was probably about this small right here. She said it was very small. And I was like, okay. So I was worried about it because I never heard of fibroids. I didn't even know I had it. So I know someone may ask me, so I just say it right now, if it's preventing me from getting pregnant. No, I got pregnant at 26. We were trying to get pregnant, trying to conceive. It didn't stop me from getting pregnant or it didn't hinder me from getting pregnant. I know sometimes depending on how big the fibroid is, some women can have trouble getting pregnant. Thankfully, I didn't have that trouble. It was easy for me to get pregnant. So I kept going in for my routine scans, my anatomy scans with my son, and everything was fine. The fibroid stayed, I guess, whatever size it needed to be. Fast forward, after I had my son, just stopped taking my prenatals. I wasn't taking it a lot. It was just, whenever you have a baby, and if you don't have a lot of family, if it's just you and your spouse, or you and your boyfriend, or you and your partner, it's just y'all two, and y'all don't have like a lot of help or family. That's how it was. So it was like very busy. I just was just skipping my medication or my prenatal. I don't know if that caused my fibroid to get bigger or if it was my menstrual cycle. So the fibroid just started getting bigger and bigger, and it was like making me bleed a lot. Whenever I was at work, I was like going through underwear, going through my scrubs. It was times where I was going through, because I work in radiology, I work in healthcare, so I had scrubs on. It was times where I was just going through my clothes before I even got to work. So that's why I labeled this video as females only, because I know it can get like TMI. So it was just, I was very miserable. I was drained of my energy because I was losing so much blood from the fibroid that I was weak. So I will say, if you do have fibroids, make sure you getting your blood work done routinely so that you can know if you are anemic or not. Because there was one time where I did become an anemic without even knowing. I didn't know my blood count was that low. And the ER nurses and doctors was like, thankfully you came in when you did, because if you wouldn't have, we would have had to give you a blood transfusion. So so fast forward, what made me go? I had to go to the ER. So this was the first visit I had. After my cycles got back normal, I had to go to the ER because I was bleeding a lot, and I was starting to have large blood clots, and I didn't know what it was. Working in medical, doing MRI scans and CT pelvic scans, some people are probably diagnosed with uterine cancer, ovarian cancer, cervical cancer. I didn't realize that the fibroid had gotten that big to where it was causing me to bleed a lot. But apparently, I don't know if it was the estrogen or the menstrual cycles I was having. it was causing it to bleed, and I was just bleeding a lot. So I got nervous because I didn't know it was the fibroid getting that big at the time. And I went to the ER, and I was so skeptical about going because I was in between having insurance. So I was in between having a full-time job and having a PRN job. So I didn't have any medical insurance. So I knew the ER bill was going to be high because I was working as a ER CT tech anyway. So I knew the bill was going to be high, and I really dreaded going, but my husband kept telling me, "No, your health is more important than a bill." So I finally went in, and I got like blood work done. I think a pelvic ultrasound done, and it was something else I got done. Probably like your standard vitals or whatever. And then the lady who did my scan, she was a new ultrasound tech. And this is why I always tell people that I work with, if I have any say in someone getting hired, I always tell them it doesn't matter if someone is new. Just go ahead and hire them without the experience. So I say that because when I graduated from X-ray school, it took me almost a year to get a job. A lot of people kept skipping over my application because I was a new student. So so I think what happened was, I think this what happened. I went for a pap smear first. Let me rewind. I went for a pap smear first because it was my time to get checked up. I went for a pap smear, and this OBGYN, she was getting ready to close her facility. When she did the pap smear, this was before I went to the ER. When she did the pap smear, she said, "There is something in your cervix down there. I don't know what it is, but it's a mass." When she said it was a mass, I got so nervous. And I think I'm no medical doctor, so I can't really speak on this, but I will say this. When people say you have a mask, if you don't have any medical experience, you are going to scare someone. Someone is going to automatically think they have cancer, because I know someone who said they had, or someone told them they had a mass in their breast, but come to find out it was not cancer. So that person worried and worried and worried. So when, I don't know if doctors or anyone can switch up that type of terminology and say, "We see something in your breast," or "We see something in your cervix area." I'm not sure if it's a cancer or not, but the only way to tell is if you have a biopsy. I think that is better, a better phrase to tell people, because when she told me that I had a mass in my cervix area, I lost it. Like, I was so nervous. I just started praying, and I know a lot of people, they have different faith. I can only go with the faith that I know, the faith that I was taught. So I started praying, and I was like, "I do not want it to be anything bad." That's all she said. She said, "You need to, I know you don't have insurance, because keep in mind, I told you I was in between insurance. I know you don't have medical insurance, but if you go to this hospital and this clinic, they probably can get you in for a cheaper price and do a biopsy." Fast forward, the place that she wanted me to go to, I was on a long waiting list for like 3 months, because where she wanted me to go, I think it was considered like a county hospital. So they was taking a lot of people, probably, low income, someone who didn't have medical insurance like me. So it kind of caused the schedule for these OBGYNs to get backed up, and then they had a schedule for out or whatever. So I couldn't get in. I scheduled an appointment, but it was like for, I think, 3 months down the road, I had to go with it. But in between, I told you I started bleeding a lot. When she told me that I had a mass, and then I thought I had a tiny fibroid, I didn't know why I was bleeding so much. So I didn't know the fibroid had grew that big. I just thought that she seen a mass, or the C word or whatever. So I got up and I went to the ER, and I went to the ER in the middle of the night. I don't know. It probably was like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I think I had to go to work the next day. I'm not sure. But I went to the ER, and they did the ultrasound scan, which brings me back to, if I have say so and someone getting hired, I tell them, go ahead and hire somebody new. It doesn't matter. So the lady, and I hope she see this video, because I called her job and I asked for the manager, and I said, "Whoever this girl is, someone need to give her a raise, because she did a great job on my scan." The other doctor who did my pap smear thought it was the C word, and she did a great job. So the ultrasound tech, she was brand new. She was fresh out of school. She came in, she did the pelvic ultrasound, and she was just making. I do breast ultrasound, so I kind of know similar of how the equipment worked. So she had that device, that probe, and she was just making it go in circles, like she was doing the best job she could to get that scan on me. And she turned it into the doctor, and I wanted to ask her so bad, working in radiology, I wanted to ask her, hey, is it something bad? But I know I couldn't, because I know we can't tell patients what we see. But I wanted to ask her anyway. But in between time when she was cleaning up the machine, I was just asking her, hey, how long have you been doing this? And she told me, she was like, I'm really new. I'm out of school. And I was like, oh, well, you did a great job. And after the ER doctor came in, and the ER doctor said, the radiologist read the report, and it looks like you have a fibroid. And I was like, okay, okay, woo. Now the news is going into my favor, you know. I'm praying. I'm still praying at the moment. Like, I'm praying and I'm worried and I'm stressing while I'm waiting for my results, which it didn't take long. It probably took 30 minutes to an hour. Anyway, so they said follow up with an OBGYN to make sure that this is a fibroid. Maybe they could do a biopsy just to be sure. So keep in mind, the OBGYN that I was going to follow up with, they booked me out 3 months in advance. At this point, I'm losing blood. So they prescribe or tell me to get on iron pills and go see my primary care doctor. So I get on the iron supplements like they suggested. And then I had to find another OBGYN. I couldn't wait 3 months because at this point I'm still bleeding a lot. It's messing up my daily living. I can't go to the park anymore because I'm in between changing my clothes. It's hard for me to go to work. One day I was at work, I saw a coworker, it was a lady, and I don't know if I had my phone or not. I don't think I had my phone at the time. Normally I keep my phone on me when I'm stepping away from my desk, but this time I think I left it, or it was dying, or it was dead or something. So I stepped out, and thankfully this girl walked up at the right moment because I had messed up my clothes. And I was like, hey, hey, I need your help. And then she was so nice. It was somebody I worked with. She was so nice. She brought me a blanket and helped me get it wrapped around. And I know this happens a lot. So I had changing clothes in my car. I was like, I have to go to my car. She was like, okay, it's fine. So I get into my second OBGYN. Keep in mind, the first OBGYN told me that there's a mass. So since I'm bleeding a lot and I'm bleeding more and more during my cycles, I go to the ER and they rule out the C word, you know. They said it looks like it's a fibroid, but follow up with your OBGYN. So I got into the second OBGYN. I canceled the other one where it was going to take me 3 months to get in. So I'm nervous again because this OBGYN told me this doesn't look like a fibroid. This looked like a mass. And I was like, why does people keep calling it a mass? Which I know this terminology because I work in healthcare, but I'm like, I'm like, if somebody who doesn't work in healthcare, this sounds scary. So I'm like, is it something bad? Because the ER doctor is saying that it's like a fibroid, and the doctor was like, it doesn't look like a fibroid. The only way we can tell is if we do a biopsy. And to be honest with you, I'm not skilled enough to handle this type of fibroid, or I'm not skilled enough to handle this type of case. So that was the second OBGYN. So I said, okay, well, if this OBGYN isn't skilled enough to handle this case, because apparently whatever was in my cervix or down there in my uterine area, it was getting bigger and it was getting bigger every time, because I'm keeping my report. And whenever you go to like different facilities, they can see your other chart electronically if you approve for them to do so. So I go to the third OBGYN. They tell me the same thing. So I'm paying money each time going to these different doctors. I'm paying out of pocket, self-pay, which is probably $120, $130. So I go to the third OBGYN, and she said, this does not look like a fibroid. It doesn't have the exact shape of a fibroid. So I need to send you off to somebody else, which she was giving me different doctors, different places, but I had to call and see if I could get in. And she was like, if it is something bad, then they will be skilled enough at the facility to go in and I guess remove any lymph nodes down there that needed to, because at this time my lymph nodes is swelling up. It's like everything is going crazy at this moment. So now I see what the second OBGYN was telling me. The clinic that she was in, she didn't have all the tools to do certain things if something went wrong. If she was to pull out this fibroid in her office and it wasn't a fibroid. So anyway, my report came in and it said that I needed to go to an oncologist. If anyone doesn't know what that means, you're going to see a cancer doctor. So I lose it. I probably was weighing I I think I got the call while I was at work, and no one ever sees me upset at work. So I just stepped away. I had tears in my eyes. I told my supervisor, I have to go outside. I have to go outside. I just got a bad call. So the call said, your test came back this, that, and the third. You need to go see an oncologist. So I lost probably 25 pounds within a week or two, because when someone has to go to an oncologist, majority of the time, I'm not saying all the time, but majority of the time, they either have cancer or they are suspected to have cancer or at risk for having cancer. So I couldn't eat for like the last 2 weeks or whatever. I couldn't eat. I dropped back down to my high school weight. Keep in mind, at the time, I'm thinking I'm 28 now. I had my son probably when I was 27, and all this time, this thing is sitting in me for a year because I keep getting the runaround of, you have to wait 3 months. Now go here, now we'll schedule it. You're here. So I'm getting the runaround too much, and time is passing by. I can't apply for a medical insurance because I'm in a tricky point where, let's say this is February when I'm going into the ER, and you have to wait to November or enrollment time to get medical insurance. And I could have gotten a full-time job, but I knew that I was going to be miserable getting a full-time job just for the insurance that didn't leave. So I wanted to find a job that I was going to be happy at. So in between time where I'm waiting for my call to the oncologist, I'm praying, I'm reading Bible scriptures, which I do that all the time, but I'm just saying I'm really going through it. And I stumbled on the scripture where this lady was bleeding for like 12 years, and she was bleeding for like 12 years, and she came up and she touched Jesus' garment and her flow stopped. But before she did that, she had spent a lot of money going to see doctors and nobody could heal her. So I read that scripture over and over because I'm like, I'm going to all these doctors and no one is telling me anything. So so I read the scripture, I read it over and over and over and over. And in between time, I'm also drinking my green tea. I'm drinking my green tea because I read that green tea is good for cancer cells. It's good for a lot of things, but it's mainly also good for getting rid of cancer cells. So I'm drinking my green tea like it is water. And if you drink a lot of it, your head may start hurting. So don't drink about 8 cups a day. Drink a lot, but just limit how much you're drinking at a time. So anyway, I'm drinking my green tea in between. I get scheduled to see this oncologist, and she do her scan, or she do her assessment, or her look with her scope and her pap smear. And she look and she tell me, she said, it's just a fibroid. And I must have was just, I think I started crying. I don't know, but I was like, thank you, God. And I probably started crying. I'm not sure. Because keep in mind, you have 3 or 4 doctors telling me that I have cancer pretty much, and then they send me to an oncologist to look at it. And I was just so thankful, that it wasn't nothing bad. So she did refer me for an MRI scan. I had a pelvic MRI scan I already knew how I was going to go because I am an MRI tech too. I do different things in radiology, but I'm also an MRI tech. So I do pelvic MRI scans all the time for fibroids. So I knew what to expect. So I go in, if you don't know anything about this, I go in for a pelvic MRI and they start your IV, and then they tell you about the scan. Before you go inside the room, they do have you fill out an MRI screening form. So I had to fill out an MRI screening form, which I'm just playing the role like I'm not even an MRI tech. I'm just letting them do their job. So when I work in medical, I don't step in and act like I know everything. I just sit back, don't even tell anyone I'm in medical, and I just go with the flow. So that's what I was doing. I was going with the flow. I had already came in MRI attire. I didn't have on no metal or none of that. So the scan took about 30 to 45 minutes. They gave me contrast. The contrast was to see my pelvic better, to see how many fibroids I had, how big it was, what kind of surgery or treatment they could give me. So in between all of this time, within a year of waiting for all these appointments, the scans, the surgery, all this stuff, I end up getting on birth control because the bleeding got out of control. I just couldn't tolerate it anymore. I was losing blood. I was messing up my clothes a lot. I couldn't go anywhere because whenever I got the car, I had messed up my clothes. So I ended up getting on birth control. It helped stop the bleeding, but I got on the shot. It helped stop the bleeding, but I gained a lot of weight. So I went from, which I was supposed to be 150 pounds anyway. But remember, I told you I dropped down to my high school weight, so I dropped down to about 128, 130 pounds. So the shot blew me up. And normally, whenever I was on birth control, the shot years ago, I didn't even gain any weight. I was complaining about wanting to get off of it because I was losing weight. But I don't know. It was something about this time. I gained like 40, 50 pounds, and it was just so hard to get out, even when I was barely eating at work. Like I just stopped eating at work and I was having headaches because I thought it was a shot. And this is all, it could be, I don't know. Some doctors say it's not the shot. Some doctors say, I don't know, it could be an increase in appetite. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. If you know more about this, please leave it in the comment box so I can be more educated because I don't know. And I know I can look on the internet too, but I'm just saying, just so you can interact in the comments and everyone else can learn as well. So I get on birth control and then eventually I get off. So fast forward, when I was drinking the green tea, I don't know, I think it was either shrinking it or it was putting it in the area where my fibroid, in the area where it was going to be easy for the doctor to pull out. So the plan was for me to go back to this oncologist, and she was going to schedule me to just have that fibroid taken out without a hysterectomy. I'm 28 at the time, so I'm telling these people, hey, I want more kids. I don't want a hysterectomy. Excuse me. I know people who have told me that they did not have a hysterectomy and their fibroid was taken out. And I know it all depends on how big, size. I know all this. I have patients who come in and tell me this. I'm reading up on this. So I know. So that's why you have to know. So when you go into these doctor's offices, you can be prepared for yourself. So I go in and they say they was going to schedule me for a hiroscopy. Maybe saying that wrong. It's almost sound like hysterectomy, but hiroscopy or something. So they was going to schedule me for a scope. It was going to be inserted through my vagina and it was going to pull the fibroid out. But they always throw in the fine print. So she was also telling me, hey, if you start bleeding a lot, it's going to turn into a hysterectomy. Do you understand that we are going to do the scope? But if you bleed a lot, it's going to turn into a hysterectomy. And I was like, okay, I understand. I'm nervous about this because when they tell you this, it's almost like they're leaning towards a hysterectomy, in my opinion. But I know they're giving you the risk. I do biopsies all the time with the doctors and the radiologists, and they have to tell patients the risk, the benefits, and tell them, all this stuff in between. But what I didn't trust was I got my appointment and it was scheduled, and I called and I was like, hey, I have to get in sooner than this date. And you want to know why? My fibroid fell through my vagina or was hanging out, while I'm in the house. Somehow it just slipped out. So, so I think I'm going too far. But so what made me not go to the oncologist doctor was because all along I think they had me planned for a hysterectomy. They never had me planned for that scope that I told you that they said they was going to do. Because when I told them, hey, I need to change this appointment and move it up because I'm just bleeding too much, I can't take it anymore. I get on my notification for my appointment change date that they was getting me in for a hysterectomy, a total hysterectomy, meaning my cervix is coming out, my ovaries, my uterus, everything is coming out. So at this point, I don't trust them now. I don't trust the facility because you told me that we're doing another procedure. You said worst case scenario, if I'm bleeding, I'm not even in your facility now. So why are you assuming that it's going to be a hysterectomy all of a sudden? But anyway, I didn't trust them because they pretty much lied. They told me that I was going to for another procedure, but they had me scheduled for a hysterectomy. That's not what we discussed. So I went to another doctor, and she just flat out told me. She said, "I'm going to do the best that I can for you to not have a hysterectomy. We have not pulled a fibroid out through the vagina this big as I had mine in a while. So we're going to do our best, and I'm going to make sure that you do not have a hysterectomy if I can help it. If you do not bleed." And then she was like, "Are you okay with that?" I said, "I'm okay with that." So I felt comfortable with this fifth doctor because she did tell me, she told me, hey, you have a big fibroid. We will attempt to use the scope. But if you bleed a lot and it gets out of control, then we have to do a hysterectomy. And I understood that. And I was like, I thanked her for telling me the honest truth and trying, to do the fibroid the way that she told me that it was going to be done. So fast forward, whenever I got scheduled for the appointment, but before I could go to my appointment at this fifth doctor, I went to five doctors. Before I can go to the appointment, I'm in the house on a Saturday. The fibroid slips and is hanging out or kind of hanging out my vagina. So I called and I was like, hey, can I speak to the OBGYN? The OBGYN that was going to do my surgery was not on call. Somebody else was on call. So this doctor told me, push it back in. And my husband and I was looking like, she can't push it back in. It's this big and it's hanging out. So long story short, that's why I said this video is for females only. Long story short, he had to rush me to the ER 30 minutes away. I'm laying in the car slumped down because I can't sit down. I go in and they have a lot of people in the ER. And around this time, this is COVID, so they're telling me that my son, which was probably one at the time, had to stay in the car. My husband had to stay in the car with my son because my son was too young to have a mask on, and everyone in the facility had on a mask because I think this is right around COVID time. Actually, it was around COVID time. So my son and my husband had to go back to the car and they would not give me in. I'm telling you, I know medical terms, so I was like, I'm bleeding a lot. I cannot sit down. Is someone able to like get me in or whatever? And I was like, can someone triage me? And then the lady was like, can you wait a second? Because, we're trying to see who can take you or whatever. And I was like, I cannot sit down. The fibroid is hanging out. So they rushed me back because they see that I'm serious now. They see that something is wrong. I'm bleeding uncontrollably and I can be losing a lot of blood. So they get me back and the ER doctor is like, whoa. So they called the on-call OBGYN. It was a guy and he told them if they can't push it back, I have to do an emergency C-section. And I was like, not emergency C-section. I'm sorry. I had a C-section before. They had to do an emergency hysterectomy. So I'm telling the ER doctor, please do the best you can because I'm not trying to have a hysterectomy. They already know this. So this ER doctor had to call another ER doctor because as they was pushing the fibroid in, I'm bleeding under control, uncontrollably. So they said, if it doesn't stop, if her bleeding doesn't stop, we have to do a hysterectomy. Long story short, because I know I gave y'all a mouthful, but I had to say this to get my point across so that you can understand. Long story short, they was able to push it back in, the bleeding stopped, and they didn't have to do a hysterectomy that day. So I was able to go to my next appointment. They did the scope, the hysteroscopy. They pulled the fibroid out. Before they did that, they did give me like medicine or whatever. They gave me numbing medicine. They gave me like medicine to put me to sleep or whatever, and I had to be put to sleep for it. The OBGYN, she did tell me that I did bleed a lot, but they was able to control it. They didn't have to give me any blood because when they did wake me up, the first thing I asked was, did I have a hysterectomy? She was like, no. I was like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I couldn't thank her enough. But I'm going to have to if you have any other questions, let me know. So, what I feel that helped me out was number one, prayers and God. I will say that I can't deny my faith. You know, if this video isn't for you, then it's not for you. I can't deny my faith to please to someone or for someone to like me. Is all what I'm saying. I had to pray because it had to have been prayer to get me to where I was going. And if four doctors telling you you have cancer, and then one doctor you get to and they pull it out and it's not cancer, then who is it? So I'm praying, and I just was so thankful that it wasn't anything bad. I will say prayer and green tea was my best friend. It helped a lot. Try green tea if you have fibroids. Go in there, stand up for yourself, and if you don't want a hysterectomy, just tell them, what are my other options? I know it's another procedure I can have done. Am I able to have this procedure done? Because keep in mind, if it's real, real big, then they don't have a choice but to do a hysterectomy. If it's real big and it can't go through your vagina. So, other than that, if you have any questions, let me know. And so far everything is going well. My cycles, because my cycle was, I was bleeding for like 14 days, sometimes 15 days, and it was heavy. So now with my cycles, I bleed very lightly for 3 days. I'm going to knock on wood. I very lightly. So I can't think of anything else. But if you have any questions, leave it in the comment box for me to answer. If you are struggling with uterine fibroids, they also have other procedures you can get done. I knew about the uterine embolization, the UFE. I chose not to get that because I had a radiology, and I don't know this information. I'm just going by what I was told and what I was shown. So since I work with the radiologist, I had one who sent me an article because I asked, I was like, hey, I heard this can stop people from conceiving and or causes miscarriages. I had a lot of radiologists that told me no, but I had one who gave me an article and said, read this article, you make your decision based off of what you read. Like, this radiologist was so kind. He emailed me the article from, I guess, his personal email, whatever. He took time out of his busy day to do that. And I was so thankful because I was going to let a radiologist that I work with do my UFE procedure. But when I decided that no, I wanted more kids, I still only have one, but it's not because of fibroids or whatever. But anyway, so that I was like, no, I don't want to do the UFE. And I just decided on, since I wasn't going to do a hysterectomy, because I was a candidate for the hysteroscopy, they was able to pull it out vaginally. But if you can think of anything, put in the comment box. I will say the birth control, I had the shot. It helped control that bleeding until they was able to take out those fibroids. I think they took out three or four. One was real big, and then one was under that, and then like two small was like, she showed me the picture of all the different fibroids. So I haven't been back on birth control since then. I'm trying to lose all of the weight that I did gain from it because I'm normally like 150, 160. And right now I'm like 186 pounds. But if you have any questions, let me know. I know this was a long video, but I just want to just sit down, chat, not have to rush, and just have this conversation. But if you have any questions, let me know. If you like videos like this, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you for watching. Bye. I will see you all next time.